So today I have taken an important question from UPSC 2025, and this question from first paper anthropology, and this question is Mendelian and non-Mendelian trait, right? और इस पे जो है हमें शॉर्ट नोट्स लिखना है, right? Means you have to be write your answer in 150 words. So this is very important कि जब कभी भी आप आंसर लिखने जाते हैं तो दिस इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग कि हाउ टू राइट आंसर विद इन 150 वर्ड्स, राइट? और अगर आप आंसर राइटिंग के स्किल से अवगत हैं तो देन you will be able to write your answer in 150 words and you will be get very good marks, right? So try to understand here what our question. So first is that is Mendelian trait, right? And second is that is non-Mendelian trait. So Mendelian trait means genetic trait, है ना? That is monogenic trait, right? And that trait follow Mendel law of inheritance, right? यानी कि ऐसा ट्रेट जो सिंगल जीन से कंट्रोल्ड हो, है ना, कि this trait is determined through a single gene. And when we study about the Mendel law of inheritance, so Mendel said that trait is controlled by a gene which comes in pair, right? Means which has two alleles. One allele is dominant and other allele is recessive. So here when we see about Mendelian trait, means that a Mendelian trait is determined by a single gene, but it has two alleles. One is dominant allele and second is recessive allele, and therefore that a Mendelian trait is two types. First is dominant trait and second is recessive trait, right? So we should have to explain that according to Mendel law of inheritance means we have to express, we have to evaluate that question. Some example from dominant trait, inheritance of dominant trait, and some examples from recessive trait, inheritance of recessive trait. And the traits are एग्जाम्पल रिलेटेड टू मेंडेलियन ट्रेट, है ना? मेंडेलियन ट्रेट की जब बात करते हैं तो मेंडेलियन ट्रेट का मतलब ये है, जैसे अगर हम अप्लाई करें कि स्टडी ऑफ मैन, राइट, और स्टडी ऑफ ह्यूमन जेनेटिक्स. So when we study human genetics, so it has two important aspects. Here gene is divided into autosomal and sex chromosomal inheritance. So here we should have to give example related to dominant autosomal trait and second is recessive autosomal trait, right? So for dominant autosomal trait, there is a disease named Huntington disease that is an important example of dominant autosomal trait, and cystic fibrosis that is an example of recessive autosomal trait, that is Mendelian trait, that is monogenic trait, that is determined by a single gene which has two alleles. That allele is dominant or recessive, and therefore on the basis of that example, and you are able to evaluate Mendelian trait. Second important thing is that if you see about sex inheritance, so here you should have to give example related to X-linked dominant trait. So X-linked dominant trait, you can give example about hypophosphatemia, that is another important disease. And for X-linked recessive trait, राइट इसके लिए आप क्या कर सकते हैं? सो अदर इंपॉर्टेंट एग्जांपल दैट इज हेमोफिलिया, राइट, that is an important example of recessive X-linked Mendelian trait. So on the basis of that, you are able to express your view okay, this is Mendelian trait, and through that example you are able to express your view, right? आप इसको इस तरह से दिखा सकते हैं. Second important thing related to that, non-Mendelian trait, right? So non-Mendelian trait, which traits doesn't follow Mendel law of inheritance, right? वो मेंडल लॉ ऑफ इनहेरिटेंस को नहीं फॉलो करता है. सो हियर यू कैन गिव एग्जांपल रिलेटेड टू फर्स्ट पॉलीजेनिक ट्रेट, सेकंड paleotropic effect, third multifactorial inheritance, and fourth important thing here you can give example related to codominance, right? So you will have to explain about that. Polygenic trait means genetic trait which is determined by more than one gene or many gene when control a phenotypic trait, that is called polygenic trait. As for example, our height, our weight, our face, that is an important example of polygenic trait, and you can give example related to that. Second, what is paleotropic effect? So here you try to understand about that. Some single gene, here gene is single, one gene, and it has multiple phenotypic effect, right? So if a single gene has multiple phenotypic effect, that is called paleotropic effect. And for that, here you can give example about an important disease that is known as a phenyl. So you can give example related to phenylketonuria, right? And here for multifactorial inheritance, you can give example about a trait which is determined by many genes as well as environmental factor, right? So what is example? So you can give example related to skin color, right? So skin color is determined by many gene, means it is a polygenic trait also, but it is also influenced by environment and co-dominance. That is very important because in human ABO blood group inheritance, blood group AB express co-dominance, right? So that co-dominance is exception of Mendelian trait, and therefore on the basis of that discussion you are able to write your answer. So here both Mendelian trait and non-Mendelian trait give us very good understanding about the inheritance pattern in human being as well as other animal being, and therefore this trait give us very good insight for the understanding of human genetics.